His attitude towards life has always been based on the standard of survive. And this time, he was recommended by senior sect Uncle Jace to be the team leader for the EC trip. Although there were some gains this time, he still hasn't been able to release the frustration in his heart. 3 months later, Kenzo has successfully mastered the cultivating principle of the true threefold flame. He relies solely on the power of Chi Flame, which is 1/3 less powerful than Netherworld Cold Flame when investing the same amount of spiritual power. However, once he combines Chi Flame, Essence Flame, and Divine Flame into the true threefold flame, the expected power is estimated to be several times stronger than Netherworld Cold Flame. This flame can be constantly present in the body, burning evil and refining the impure. With the presence of multiple flames, the body is protected. Moreover, the power of the true threefold flame will continue to increase along with one's cultivation achievements. Suddenly, a white cloud appears from the horizon. Kenzo quickly extinguished the Chi Flame. He then stood up, clasping his fists and bowing to the white clouds. Jace, sitting upright with a serious expression, spoke slowly. Kenzo, I heard that your journey to the EC 3 months ago was quite fruitful. You handled the provocation from the Dragon Palace Prince properly. It seems my recommendation of you was not in vain. You really hit the nail on the head there. Kenzo's face immediately showed a meaningful smile. Thanks to your kindness, Senior Sect Uncle, I was able to acquire the Flame Technique and now the Thunder Technique. Today's special banquet is a token of gratitude for your guidance and support. Just back a few days, Jace squinted his eyes slightly. Why does it feel fishy? He usually comes here to mooch drinks, and he never seems happy about it. Jace whispered to himself and guessed softly. Could it be that you were tricked and deceived by me during this trip to the EC again, Kenzo? Is it possible that you are trying to scheme against your senior sect uncle with the poison pill room? Kenzo replied helplessly with a wry smile. I am just Little Peak's disciple. Since you are a senior sect uncle and an immortal in the sect, you are also from the Sky Peak lineage, highly esteemed by all the elders as the sect steward. Even if I wanted to scheme against your thoughts, I wouldn't have the courage to do so against you, senior sect uncle. As spoken, Kenzo took out 2 night pearls from his sleeve. This is the magical artifact memory sphere. Through his modifications, it can now record sound and images. 1 for you, senior sect uncle, and 1 for me. How about recording the entire feast today in the memory sphere? Jace immediately felt happy. He didn't say a word and leaped off the white cloud with hands behind his back. This is really a good treasure. Then he reached out and took a memory sphere. Now that I have it, I want to see what you have up your sleeve. Please. Senior sect uncle, please let Kenzo's smile become even more gentle. As soon as he sat down, Jace quickly opened the memory sphere and placed it aside. Then Jace picked up a pair of chopsticks and poked at the dish in front of his face one by one. He looked at the exquisite dishes in doubt. Could it be that each of these food and drinks contains a harmless herbal medicine, but when combined together, it becomes a dangerous hallucinogenic drug? Are you really inviting me to drink? Kenzo invited Jace to drink together. He specially brewed dragon venom liquor, a tonic for invigorating yang and nourishing deficiency, to please Jace. He noticed Jace's meticulous thoughts during the last drinking session. Of course, he cannot use ordinary methods when dealing with immortal. Are you really inviting me to drink? Kenzo looks harmless and innocent. He shook his head and sighed. Senior sect uncle, have you encountered any hardships outside? Why would you doubt my intentions so much? After all, I am not a malicious person. Jace waved his hand and made a joke. So he took the initiative to pick up the wine glass and invite others to drink. What is an immortal afraid of? The two of them drank very boldly. In no time, a cask of wine was down their throats. But they did not have enough fun drinking. Kenzo immediately took out another cask of senior sect uncle. This is the dragon venom liquor I presented to you as a token of gratitude. Jace raised an eyebrow, secretly chuckling in his heart. This guy's methods are really cunning. He wanted to see how Kenzo would play his tricks. Jace used immortal power to take over the wine barrel and controlled it with chi using the chopsticks. The chopsticks pierced the seal, under the control of his immortal power. He dipped a little bit of wine and brought it over. He held the chopsticks between his fingers. He slowly sent the wine into his mouth. Then he savored it carefully in his mouth. Suddenly Jace's eyes lit up. Good wine, Kenzo told him. It is made from 36 poisonous herbs and 12 poisonous insects, supplemented with leobagon. They soak for 3 months until the toxicity is just neutralized. This wine has the function of replenishing essence, strengthening bones, and enhancing male virility. I wonder if Senior Sect Uncle can afford it. Its effectiveness is extraordinary, you know. Jace raised an eyebrow at Kenzo. Kenzo also winked at Jace. They both shared a knowing smile when facing each other. Jace proudly said, "What's so hard to bear about this? I have a cultivation partner." Kenzo immediately spoke upon sensing the situation. "That's why I brewed this wine. Senior Sect Uncle, please have a drink." Jace felt extremely relaxed. He raised the debut elixir wine and took a big gulp, feeling refreshed and invigorated. Despite Kenzo's kind reminder to not drink too much at once, Jace remained unfazed. "I am an immortal. What is there to fear? Besides, you, Senior Sect Uncle, have just emerged from seclusion recently. I truly have nothing to fear." Kenzo smirked secretly. His plot was about to bear fruit. He casually agreed, "That's really impressive." He probably didn't know how strong the wine was. After drinking it, he would probably have to battle for at least 3 days and 3 nights. Kenzo saw that the fish was about to take the bait. At this time, he made another request to Senior Sect Uncle. In the insights you provided on formations, there is a formation called the 9 Radiant Glaze Formation. I studied it with Junior Julia Master for half a month. We still cannot succeed. I would like to ask Senior Sect Uncle for some guidance." Jace suddenly laughed. This 9 Radiant Glaze Formation is a spell formation he created, even if Kenzo wanted to use this formation to trap himself. This is also easily breakable for him. I'll go with you to take a look. As the saying goes, if you eat someone's mouth, you might have to use their hands. Jace drank his potent elixir wine, so I naturally had to give him some pointers. They soon arrived at an open space behind the pill room. Jace immediately spotted the source of the problem, so he decided to help Kenzo make some adjustments. He adjusted the positions of several bronze mirrors as suggested by Jace. Suddenly, the bronze mirrors began to shimmer with dazzling light. It almost blinded his eyes. At the same time, the spell formation had been activated, trapping the 2 of them inside. Jace looked at him intimidatingly. It's not good to deceive oneself. Suddenly a wisp of flame burst on Kenzo's arms and legs. Jace was taken aback and then quickly shouted, "How did you catch fire?" Soon he realized that it was the divine flame of the true threefold flame. Kenzo pretended to panic. At this moment, I just want to call him Oscar-winning actor Kenzo. Senior Sect Uncle, why are you trembling and crying out Kenzo's name? His other hand threw the memory sphere to a certain direction from behind. In an instant, flames engulfed all around Kenzo. He smiled and waved at Jace. His figure turned into a paper man with a bang, instantly burning to ashes in the firelight. Jace suddenly widened his eyes. This person is trying to tarnish his innocence with the memory sphere. But he is well versed in formation technique, not to mention that this formation is created by himself. Can he still not find the entrance to the life gate? So Jace did not show a hint of panic. Then he calmly began to break the formation. In his eyes, Kenzo was still too inexperienced. Half an hour passed. Jace was still wandering around in place. An hour passed. Jace was already panting with exhaustion. The formation had been modified beyond his imagination. All escape techniques were blocked by the basic formation. Indeed, it was the 9 Radiant Glaze formation that he created. At this moment, he realized that the banquet itself was just a cover. The real revenge is this formation. And he forgot that Kinzo's favorite arrangement is the chain formation. Just then, he suddenly felt a wave of heat in his body. It seemed like his blood vessels were surging madly. A murky yang energy rapidly expanded within his own body, flowing quickly towards his lower abdomen. He nervously clenched his legs tightly, surprised by the potent force of the elixir wine. Jace felt as if his immortal body was burning. Various scenes of affection with his Tao companion flashed through his mind. His breath quickened, feeling as if he were breathing fire. Sweat broke out all over his body. Endure. He had to endure. This level of effectiveness is just not cutting it. As long as he remembered Quinn was waiting for him at the residence. However, the more he thought about it, the more uncomfortable he felt. He stood up instantly, bending his body. He was making an effort to control himself all over. He was keenly aware that Kinzo's memory sphere was still watching him. He absolutely could not embarrass himself in front of it. But this is an addictive pleasure, how could he resist it? Kinzo has always been known for his cautious approach to things. Even when it comes to his own Masters Jr., it's no exception. Not only does he need to set up a banquet to put him at ease, and he needs to cater to his preferences to make him happy. Finally, he recites the Great Path Oath to reassure himself. Jace exerts all his immortal power to suppress that turbid yang energy. He fell to his knees with a thud. Kinzo, I admit defeat. I won't bother you again in the future, okay? Kinzo gave a faint smile. It's almost done, so I'll let him off. Not far away, in front of Jace, a wooden sign appeared with several lines of text written on it. He quickly leaned closer to read it. And he immediately began reciting the vow of enlightened devotion. The wooden sign clearly reads, "From this moment on, you are not allowed to arrange anything involving Kinzo without his permission. Do not disclose any information about Kinzo. Do not give any magical artifact or tool to any living being. Violating this vow will result in losing manhood." Jace was so anxious that he had no choice. Isn't it just a few hundred words of the Great Path vow that I read? At the same time, Heaven Path suddenly sensed it. The sound of thunderous thunder resounded above Little Peak. As he finished reciting his hundreds of words of vows, the surrounding formation slowly dissipated. Together with the peripheral formation, they all closed completely. Jace leaped up in a hurry and rushed toward Sky Peak. He kept chanting in his mouth, "Quinn, Quinn, you must not retreat into seclusion, Quinn." The characters on the wooden sign also began to fade quickly. Kinzo showed a calm smile. Finally, it was temporarily settled. 2 months later, it was time for them to refine pills together at the pill room, as they agreed. "Kinzo, do you still have the elixir wine that you gave me for my senior brother? My senior sister wants to exchange a few cultivation methods for the elixir wine recipe. You can choose the methods." Kinzo replied without looking up. "It's right in front of you." He was about to lower his head to continue working when he suddenly remembered something. He turned his head and reminded, "This wine is not suitable for women to drink. It's specially prepared for men. Women will get into trouble if they drink it." With a clatter, a wooden spoon fell to the ground. A little wine spilled out from it. Julia glared at Kinzo. "What will happen if I drink this? Your movements are a bit too fast, aren't they?" Kinzo rubbed his forehead speechlessly. "Well, maybe you should grow a beard too." Julia, Masters Jr., was first stunned by the idea of growing a beard. She soon relaxed. "What's this? It turns out I just grew a beard. It really gave me a fright. I even thought I would become androgynous or something." Kinzo shook his head helplessly at Masters Jr.'s logical thinking. He has always been very admiring. Then he pointed to the excellent wine next to him. After the completion of the pill room today, he will probably seclude himself for half a year to cultivate the true threefold flame. And these few types of wine. He has already prepared a year's share for the Masters Jr. in advance. She is drooling because of this tempting wine. Kinzo continues to add, It's not good to drink too much of this. Masters Jr., you should drink in moderation. What is bottom line? It must be something that others cannot think of and cannot guess. As for what Kinzo's bottom line is, there are probably so many that even the audience can't count them all. After he briefly explained the situation to Julia Masters Jr., Kinzo continued to bury himself in his work. Julia sat quietly on the side, watching Kinzo sorting herbs. Unconsciously, she became a little lost in thought. After a moment, Julia widened her eyes and stared straight at Kinzo, saying, "Actually, you are quite good-looking too, Kinzo." Kinzo looked a bit confused. Julia's heart was filled with drunkenness as she looked at Masters Jr. Her smile became even more brilliant than before. Why didn't I notice this before? She thought. Before Kinzo had a chance to say anything. The next second, Julia had already fallen asleep on the table. Kinzo quietly watched Masters Jr., who had fallen asleep. She, asleep, had skin as fair and smooth as jade. She could be described as having a pure and clear mind with a translucent spirit. Unfortunately, she is too unpredictable when she is awake. 2 days later, he arrived at the riverside. He was going to find Kaya to discuss the matter of seclusion. Kaya was a little puzzled and asked, "Senior brother, aren't you in seclusion at the pill room this time?" Kinzo, controlling the about-to-go-wild true threefold flame, said, "No, cultivating the true threefold flame easily leads to explosions in the house." Later, he will get a small raft to go to the lake for seclusion, which will be safer. Later, Kinzo also placed several porcelain bottles in her hands. It would be good for Junior Sister to use this medicine powder to protect herself during seclusion. He carefully instructed her on the usage and dosage of each bottle of pill room. Kaya kept pondering in her heart and couldn't help but ask quietly, "Senior brother, doesn't true threefold flame need to be hidden? Isn't this method very powerful?" Kinzo casually tapped Junior Sister's head. "Just stopped teaching in recent years. You have forgotten everything I taught you." True threefold flame was bestowed by Asher. On the contrary, it will make people more suspicious. It needs to be something that others cannot think of or guess, not something deduced from the information you usually reveal. That's considered a trump card, not just based on the level of power. Kaya learned a lot from Senior Brother's words. I'm afraid she may never surpass Senior Brother's steadiness in her lifetime. He then took out 2 porcelain bottles and instructed her to place these 2 bottles of pills in front of the master's door. These pills are specially made for the master, with the effect of clearing away impurities and enhancing clarity. Kaya was delighted immediately. Wouldn't eating it free master from the body of the impure immortal? Kinzo shook his head with a light sigh. It's difficult. He also feels temporarily powerless. Then he walked into the woods. He was getting ready to make the small raft he would need next. As soon as he left, Kaya opened the jade bottle and took a sniff. Is this medicine really that powerful? Soon, a strong and pure chi hit her face. She only took a gentle breath. She felt a bit dizzy, as if her head was heavy and her feet were light. She clumsily returned to her room. Julia's words woke the dreamer up, helping Julia gradually realize her own feelings. 2 days later, Kaya sat quietly in the room to meditate and cultivate. A loud rumble woke her up directly. She immediately got up and looked out the window. I saw a huge 2-story boathouse standing on the lake. The sentence that Senior Brother said kept echoing in Kaya's mind. I will make a small raft later. She got up and walked outside, questioning Senior Brother about the size. Is there a misunderstanding? Then she glanced down at herself. Senior Brother had indeed been influenced by Julia, Masters Jr., causing him to lose his normal standards of size. 3 months later, at the Immortal Salvation sect where they cultivated, Julia seemed completely exhausted. When Kinzo was around before, she could still help him with pill refining occasionally. No problem. She can still play his homemade games occasionally. Nowadays, he has only secluded himself for 3 months. Why does it feel like 3 years have passed? She is utterly bored and about to mold. She lies there limp, like a melting clay figure, holding onto her large gourd, sighing heavily. Senior sister and senior brother finally counted enough. With a twist of her arm, she left Sky Peak in exasperation. Poor me. I am about to be all alone without anyone to accompany me. Unfortunately, I am also Master's closed-door disciple. Just then, the window of the neighboring building was pushed open. Emery, who was glowing with radiance, leaned out to look this way. Julia was exceptionally excited to see the appearance of senior sister. She lunged towards Emery through the window. Will you accompany me to Little Peak? I want to play Dodashi. I want to play Immortal Life Simulation. Emery pinched her nose. Junior sister Little Peak, is that a place I can go to? Emery's face showed a meaningful smile. Wouldn't you feel embarrassed if I went there? Julia was directly stunned by this embarrassing situation. Realizing what had happened, Julia immediately waved her hand to explain. You have misunderstood something. Kenzo and I have a pure relationship. Is that so? Emery smiled with narrowed eyes, his gaze full of aggressiveness. It's a pure relationship, but they refine pills and set up formations together every day, spending time together intimately day and night. Julia immediately retorted. She immediately told her about Kenzo's issue with not being able to touch women. Because his junior sister grew up under his watch, it's okay. Their interaction is limited to just fist bumps and high fives. Emery immediately sensed that something was wrong and continued to inquire about the origin of the illness. Julia patiently explained to her about the incident when they went out together last time. Emery burst into uncontrollable laughter a moment later. You actually believe such a simple trick. Indeed, this woke Julia up immediately. This guy actually dared to deceive me. Emery gently touched her head. Stay calm, Julia. Such a chaste and virtuous man is truly a rare treasure in this world. Don't you ever miss out on him. Julia eventually succeeded in self-strategizing. She couldn't believe it herself. She was attracted to a child who was just over 100 years old. Julia blushed all of a sudden. Senior sister, what are you talking about? How could I possibly be with him? She looked confused and didn't know how to explain. She could only use seclusion as an excuse to return to her own room. Emery chuckled softly. She followed and barged into her room. Julia, what are you shy about following me for? I will teach you how to dress and groom first. Emery showed a kind smile on his face. Let me see. What's your figure like now? The next second, clothes and jewelry were thrown aside. Only the lively laughter and chatter of the two fairies drifted nearby. Several months after senior sister's visit, Julia had been pondering over the words she had said. She was thinking about it when she went to lead the cultivation trial. She was also thinking about it while meditating in seclusion at the cave residence. Originally, she felt that she had no other feelings for Kenzo. They are just good friends who get along well with each other. Finally, Julia successfully convinced herself. Could it be that she really had feelings for Kenzo without realizing it? Until one day, when a paper crane with a message, "Emerging from seclusion with Kenzo," landed in her hands. Julia carefully held the paper crane in her palm. She had a happy smile on her face. After a while, Julia was shocked. She suddenly realized what had happened. The image of Kenzo couldn't help but appear in her mind. Her own reaction. Could it be that she's really attracted to a child who is only over 100 years old? Some things you only know once you ask. Senior sister's voice echoed in her ears, encouraging her to go and ask clearly. Julia quickly arrived at the pill room of Little Peak and looked at Kenzo, feeling somewhat unable to speak. Kenzo, do you like? Kenzo didn't look up, only asking her what she liked. Do you really like pill refining? Kenzo was puzzled by why she suddenly asked this. Julia quickly turned her head and dodged, pretending like nothing happened. It's just a matter of saying a sentence. Why is it so hard for her to spit it out? 2 hours have passed. Kenzo has wrapped himself in layer after layer of protective gear. Julia still couldn't bring herself to ask the question. She had thought about speaking up dozens of times, yet she still found it difficult to bring up. So she made up her mind. With all her might, she uttered in the weakest tone, "How did I do in this pill refining attempt?" The heavy protective suit made it difficult for him to hear clearly. But he still raised his thumb. "You are doing great as always. Masters Jr., your immortal power really helped a lot." Julia acted very awkwardly. She kept rubbing her clothes with her hands. "Lower the volume." "What do you think, Kinzo? How did I do, Masters Jr.?" "Kinzo really lives up to your expectations. You can indeed make a tough straight woman change herself for love." At this moment, it is a critical period for pill refining. Master Kinzo is fully in control of the toxic pill room. He is wearing too many antitoxin magical artifacts and Julia's voice is too low to be heard clearly. He only heard Kinzo. "What do you think of these words?" Connecting to the earlier topic of discussion. Kinzo nodded gently. Without even looking back, he said very strong and stable. "What's even rarer is how pure it is. Surprisingly, there are no impurities at all." Julia's mouth opened slightly. Her whole being froze in that moment. She couldn't contain her excitement as her heart raced. Then she threw the bottle of medicine in her hand to the side. "Do you know what you're talking about?" This action directly scared Kinzo. He looked at Julia with confusion, not understanding what he had done wrong. He then stood up and walked towards Julia. "What's wrong? Did I do something wrong?" Julia instinctively stepped back. "Is something wrong? Think about what he said. Isn't this outrageous?" Kinzo looked at her with a puzzled expression. Julia's slightly round pretty face instantly turned red. Even her forehead was emitting wisps of white smoke. She took a half step back to say something, but all that came out were tremors in her voice. She turned embarrassedly and ran towards Sky Peak. Kinzo reached out to stop her, saying they wouldn't even take today's pay if she left. Julia's Masters Jr.'s immortal power is indeed very stable, strong, and pure. Otherwise, it would not have been possible to succeed on the first furnace and save the other 8 materials she had prepared. If only I have such a pure immortal power like Masters Jr. However, I am also about to cross the tribulation soon. After a while, Kinzo quickly realized what had just happened with Masters Jr. Perhaps it was just a misunderstanding. Anyway, he refocused his mind and prepared for pill refining. He could explain things later. Julia flew swiftly in a large gourd between the peaks of the Immortal Salvation sect. She casually pulled down the wine gourd hanging from her waist. She tilted her head back and took a long drink. Then she swayed back and forth, speeding back and forth. What was she thinking about? It was Kinzo, after all. Then she darted straight into the woods. She lay there relaxed, with a slight blush on her face, thinking that she didn't really have much femininity. She casually pulled out a treasure bag. Inside was exactly what Senior Brother had brought earlier. The colorful fairy skirts that Senior Sister made for her. Julia quickly threw the treasure bag out. How could I possibly wear this? And it's for Kinzo. But she just threw it out. Unconsciously, she looked over. It shouldn't be a problem to just try it on, right? As long as she doesn't let others see it. He is a qualified weirdo. It's better for him to stay away from this kind of karma related to women. But at this moment, Julia is making every effort to test Kinzo by bringing out those fancy fairy dresses. It just seems a bit too revealing no matter how you look at it. This is simply a piece of cloth with another piece of cloth added. From early morning, she was busy in the small building without stopping until noon. She finally stood in front of her own door. It's not a big deal. On the contrary, this is even more than what she usually covers with a short skirt and shirt. She just went out for a stroll. She quickly flew to the sky above Little Peak. She scanned all around Little Peak with her immortal sense. She found Kinzo sitting in the circle chair, looking very relaxed. Meanwhile, Kaya was sitting cross-legged on the cushion, listening attentively. So she pushed the door open with both hands, shouted loudly, and rushed in. Both of them looked very calm together. This was Julia Masters Jr. with a new look. However, soon, Kaya pretended to be flustered and whispered lightly, "Oh, Masters Jr. has always been very beautiful. Now she is even more dazzling." However, when Kaya turned her head, she couldn't help but feel a little resentful. What does she want to do by changing clothes for no reason? Julia came this time mainly to see what Kenzo's reaction would be. "What do you think, Kenzo?" But he just lightly said, "Not bad." Just took a sudden look. Maybe he will be a little uncomfortable. "I see." Julia lowered her head and looked at the carefully selected matching for a long time. Her expression was slightly disappointed. Kaya watched as senior brother remained unmoved, secretly laughing in her heart. She soon took the initiative to lean over and whispered in Julia's ear, "When you dress like this, a light makeup would be more suitable." So she pulled Julia aside in one swift motion. Kenzo, seeing this, didn't say much either. He picked up the scroll and continued reading carefully. Shortly after, Julia appeared again. The Masters Jr. at this time seemed like a different person. She appeared more refined than before. She added a touch of inherent charm that women possess. "Not bad." Kenzo gives a thumbs up from the heart. "Among the women I have seen, your beauty definitely ranks in the top 3. Upon hearing him say that, Julia blinked her eyes and suddenly became happy. She accidentally burst her clothes with joy. She hurriedly covered her chest and went to change her clothes first. Kaya looked at her disdainfully. What's so great about it? The two of them had a great time playing in the room. Before long, they started to snore heavily and fell asleep. Kenzo took this opportunity to enter the underground secret chamber of the pill room. His realm shows signs of breaking free from shackles at all times. Fortunately, he can still suppress it. He sat on the meditation cushion in the corner with his eyes closed, focusing his mind. With his hands clasped together in a circle, a ball of orange-red flame slowly condensed and then was absorbed into his body. It began to wander slowly, tempering his elemental soul body. 9 petal lotuses rotated slowly around him, ethereal and ever-changing. This time in seclusion, he is very likely to break through to return to the path of the 9th realm. By then, he may directly face the heavenly tribulation. In that case, crossing the tribulation will also have to be put on the agenda. Going out to cross the tribulation is a plan he made a long time ago. Firstly, he does not want to expose his cultivation achievement, and secondly, he does not want others to see his heavenly tribulation. But if he wants to smoothly slip out of the sect gate, he will also need to put in some effort.